On. We heard a buzz. We're on. Good morning. Good morning. Boy, do I have a surprise this morning. Look who's here with me. My daddy and my mom came in for Bible study today, all the way from Wichita, Kansas. They got up before the chickens got up this morning. Let me tell you, it's about a 3-hour drive for them to be here. So I get to do Bible study with my daddy today. Bible study a lot. Hello. You got a word for us this morning? Oh,
Mary. The first grandchild. So, well, now, you should have been around her a few years ago.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, I've called her my Duke's mixture. My dad's name was Duke, or that was his nickname. And this was has fit that bill very well because Dad was the type of person that never met a stranger. My daughter is that way.
Ship off the old block right here is what I am.
And I'm so proud of Elizabeth. That's what all she's accomplished in her life. And also very proud of Tom. I think their ministry has touched lots of people. And it's just now started. You know, the light that Elizabeth shines throughout this world is a light filled with love. And everybody that meets her that I know that has come away and talked to me has talked how they felt about Elizabeth. And all of them have felt the same way. Whenever I'm down and out a little bit, I know who I call. And I get that way. You know, this past year has been what I call a struggle in my life. How long do you want me to talk? Yeah, you know, it started out with I was going to have heart surgery. I'd have a aortic valve put in. And, you know, all of these that have been, I know there's lots of people in the past that went through this that had to do that open heart. We had a doctor in Wichita that had developed a new technique, and he done it by going up through a vein and installing a piece of cow udder that made this valve. And he has been all over the world now, teaching others how to do this so that they don't have to do open heart surgery. God.
He's what?
You know, God had to be with this man and taught him how to do this. I mean, things like this don't just happen. They're miracles.
Mm-hmm. Everybody on here prayed for you. Everybody on here prayed
and I truly appreciated that. I guess you all prayed for me again. A few weeks ago. Hello. When I had an aneurysm. That doctor told me I'd be in the operating room 4 hours maximum, probably 3. Yeah, it was 6.5 hours maximum. But you know, I went back and seen him. I won't go some time ago, and when I walked in, he looked at me and he said, "This is hard to believe." He said, "I didn't think I'd see you for 6 to 7 weeks recovery." You know, and I think I walked into his office 4 weeks to the first time. Yeah, to the first time. So I have a lot of things to be thankful for in my life. And one of them sitting beside me to my left, the other one sitting down here in the table, out of sight, because this lady's sitting down here. Does nothing. So she does it all. I have one more surgery to go through. When we're going to do that, I go to see the doctor a week from Monday to find out, and but it won't be near as serious as the others. Well, I don't think it will. But I'm going to tell you all, I really did appreciate your prayers. I had a lot of people back home that also had me in their prayers. So thanks again.
So that's how my day got started. How about that? Because, you know, again, I'm pretty transparent with my life. So I shared with you guys that I had a pretty rough ride up to Wichita for his surgery, and had a heaviness come on me, and sent out a few text messages to folks telling them I was really needing prayer, because that old enemy was wanting to try to convince me I wasn't going to see my daddy again. And so to have him and my mom walk in this morning on my 62nd birthday and surprise me. There's something in my Bible right here. He won't be able to read my writing, but right here, no, right here and right here. So the first one that's in my column was in 2018. And I got a text from my daddy, and that's what it says, text from daddy. Happy birthday to my firstborn. I will never forget that special feeling when that firstborn, that I will never forget the special feeling when the firstborn gives you, knowing it's a gift from God. Love, Dad. And then last year on this day, text from daddy. 61 years ago, I received a bundle of love from our Savior, Jesus. She has stood by me through all my mistakes. I couldn't have made it without her faith, love, and comfort. I love you, Daddy's girl. Happy, happy birthday. Thank you for the memories. Love, Daddy. Woo, man. Ask me how glad I am I wrote those in my Bible. That every year on this year, now then what I've got written down in my column is my dad and mom drove here this morning for Bible study for my birthday. Isn't that something? God's so good. He's so good. He's so good. He's so good. You guys wonder why I sit here in front of y'all and tell y'all I'm the most blessed woman on the face of the earth. Nothing like a father's love, that's for sure. So with that, thank you, Daddy. Thanks, Mom, for driving in all this way. I don't know what in the world time you had to get up. Must have been about the time I woke up this morning, did my Bible study, 3 a.m. That's their normal time. You got up at 2. Wow. Yep. So we are in Daniel. I'll tell you what, the last few days Bible study was so powerful. I called a special Dream Big Girls meeting last night on the Zoom. Had a few of them come on with me last night. I was behind in my Bible reading. I know that shocks you, right? In fact, that's one of the things I talked about is the fact that, you know, I'd taken a few days off. As you guys know, Michelle and Debbie and Lori all filled in for me so I could have a few days off. I actually took some of those days and slept in, which was nice. And so I wasn't even on Bible study. And so I got behind. But you know what? I didn't have a twinge of guilt about it. No condemnation at all. I got far enough behind. I wasn't even real sure if I'd be able to catch up or not. But at 3 o'clock this morning, I woke up and I got caught up. But boy, powerful reading. And Daniel, we're in Daniel. We're in Daniel chapter 6 today. And it's a short reading, which is probably one of the reasons why I was able to get caught up. And I tell you that just so that you guys don't get that religious spirit on you that you have to read, that you got to read, and then you feel bad if you don't read. That's not what this is about. God only wants you to read because you want to read. It's not because we're forced to read. It's that's not the whole idea behind it. And it's okay if we get behind. It's okay if we catch up, and it's okay if we have to skip a few days. It's not about a religious law that we got to read. But Daniel, today we're reading about when they throw him in the lion's den. Yesterday we read about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they threw them in the fiery furnace. Fire so hot that it killed the guards that threw them in. But again, I know we set the base for this, the foundation for this when we read the first chapter in Daniel, but Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was from the royal palace back in Judah or Israel. I can't remember which country for sure. I think it's Judah, but they lived a life of luxury, guys. I mean, they had it made. They were from the royal court of the kingdom of Judah when the Babylonians come in and drug them out, took them by force, forced them into slavery, castrated them. And look at the way Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego lived their life. This is now, this is the second king. Yeah, this is Darius. So this is the second king. So they lived in captivity as slaves through King Nebuchadnezzar. Now it's Darius. They do the same thing with Cyrus. So 3 kings. I actually later on, I've got it written in my column from 2018 that it was 3 kings, but I actually think some of my scholars on here can put it in the notes for me. It may have been 4 kings before they were freed. You know, I just wondered, when Nebuchadnezzar time came to an end, do you think any of them thought, oh, this is our chance for freedom? We'll get to go home now. Do you think maybe at the end of Darius's reign, they thought, oh, maybe now soon we'll get to go home? Now, you do have to remember, though, that the prophet had told them it would be 70 years of exile. So it's not like they didn't know. But I wonder if they remembered that. I mean, when they were forced into slave labor and they're having to get up every day and everything normal to them had changed. Everything normal had changed. And yet from the beginning of Daniel, we see how these men, these 4 men who under old covenant living lived without the infilling of the Holy Ghost on the inside of them, without the ability to do all of the traditional type sacrifices and offerings. And now they established themselves, and I'm not getting into the details. Please don't chase the details with what I'm saying. It's not about the details. It's about the overall way in which Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego lived under a master. They were righteous men. That's exactly right. And because they were righteous men, and it was real. It was real. It wasn't a traditional, oh, I'll come do this burnt offering because I have to. Oh, golly, I got to go do another sacrifice. Oh, this is the 6th sacrifice that I've got to make. I got to burn this fat that causes a pleasing aroma to the Lord, possibly. It wasn't like that with them. They knew who God was. They knew God. And so I think about the United States of America and where we are right now. Thank goodness we're not having as much rioting in the streets. But if our candidate for governor doesn't make it, we think the world's come to an end. Heaven forbid that our candidate for president isn't elected. I mean, in my lifetime, I'm 62 today. In my lifetime, I don't believe I personally have ever seen the country as divided it is today. Now, make no mistake about it. This book right here tells me there's nothing new under the sun. There is, you know how much comfort I get in that? Knowing that there's nothing new under the sun. I get so much comfort from that. But in my lifetime, I don't believe I've seen this much division in America. And it literally, I'm around people that they can't talk about anything else. They can't talk about anything else but the conspiracies going on, the politics going on, the economy, this bad decision, that bad decision. We're just going to hell in a handbasket. Oh, doom and gloom, the worst. I'm around people that can't talk about anything except end times. End times. And I watch and I look and I read about Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and I think they had their names changed. Daniel's name that he gave them, that the king Nebuchadnezzar gave to Daniel, the name that I think it was Beelzebub, Belteshazzar. Yeah, that name, Belteshazzar. I'm glad I can't say it because it was the name of the idol that King Nebuchadnezzar worshipped. He changed his name to a foreign god, to an idol, and called him that. And then put these practices in place. I mean, we think we got it bad in America today. At least they've not yet come out with a rule that we have to bow down to the gold statue of you fill in the blanks every time we see it, or they flash it across the screen on television. Oh my gosh, heaven forbid they would flash it in there, put it in our scrolling vision of our phones that we scroll through all the time, that every time that we scroll past the vision of this person, we have to immediately bow down. And you get what I'm saying? I mean, what would your attitude be like? Every time that you scroll on your phone, this ruler, his face comes up and you're required to kneel and bow. That's what was required of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. How did they live their life? Well, let's just look at it this morning. Let's just start Daniel chapter 6, verse 1. Darius the Mede decided to divide the kingdom into 120 provinces, and he appointed a high officer to rule over each province. The king also chose Daniel and 2 others as administrators to supervise the high officials and protect the king's interest. He put him in charge. That means that Daniel got up every day and did work to protect the interest of his captor, of who had him bound into slavery. And he did it in such a way. Well, let's just keep reading. Rather than me tell you, let's just read what's written. Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators. Well, let me just repeat that in case you didn't get it. Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and high officers. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. Every day he got up, he got dressed, and he went to work. He didn't get up, get dressed, and go to work with an attitude. He was in slavery, you guys. He was in slavery. His body had been altered and mutilated. And he got up with such an attitude and did his work every single day as though he was working for the Lord. And you know what? We can sit here in the comfort of this heated home with comfortable chairs to sit on at a table where we can all be here and look at each other together. And our tummies are full because we went to bed full last night. We woke up full this morning with breakfast. We're lacking for nothing. And we can look at this and we can think all kinds of things. But the fact of the matter is, they were in slavery. They were in bondage. We can complain because I don't like what they've told me to do at work. But this just doesn't suit me. This doesn't fit my personality. Well, you know, God created me this way, so I don't have to do that, or I don't have to do this, or we get bad attitudes sitting here on our comfy little tushes. And they got up every day. I hope this impacts you even a third as much as it impacts me. This speaks to me, and it's been speaking to me for many years about what we complain about and how we go about to do the work that God's given us to do. Because I don't care what your job is right now today. If you're on this video with me today, if you would log in on a Monday after a Thanksgiving weekend, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, that means some of you guys are on here at 7:30. Some of you guys are on here at 5:30 in the morning. Some of you guys may be waiting and watching it at midnight when you get off work, all different time frames. If you're listening to these videos, chances are you're a believer. Chances are you know who Christ is. And yet, let's compare our attitudes to Daniel's or Shadrach's or Meshach's or Abednego's. Oh my goodness. Then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling government affairs. This is a big, big country right now. They've taken in both Judah and Israel under their reign. You know, I used to be in charge of 1,600 employees in a very large town. And I knew that on any given day, if an inspector walked in, which they did on a regular basis, they would find something. I mean, there would be something. When you've got that many employees over that large of a territory, something gets missed somewhere. I mean, we're a very small operation here, and there's not a week that goes by that I didn't mess up something, or I double booked my calendar, or one of us does something. And did you read what I just Did you hear what I just said? His enemies set out to try to find something. They began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling the government affairs, but they couldn't find anything to condemn or criticize. That's the way Daniel set about to do his work every single day. He was faithful always responsible and completely trustworthy. He didn't sit around on his cell phone while he was on the job. He didn't stop and take smoke breaks every hour because he's entitled to a smoke break whenever he wants one. He didn't stop and, answer his wife calling 15 times a day. He didn't just reach down and pick up his phone and look at it 1,000 times. Check your screen time activity. I wouldn't be proud of mine. I'm not kidding you. I tell you guys all the time, I can only speak the things that speaks to me. The reason I'm so adamant about this speaks to Elizabeth Inman. The way Daniel and his folks lived their lives for God under terrible circumstances. Terrible circumstances. So anyway, they end up throwing him in the lion's den, and we know the miracle. That's what we usually talk about, is the miracle of being thrown in the lion's den. Verse 14, hearing this, the king was deeply troubled, and he tried to think of a way to save Daniel. He spent the rest of the day looking for a way to get Daniel out of this predicament. The king didn't even want to. Daniel did his job in such a way that the king didn't even want to do what he had said he would do. And then verse 19, very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, Daniel, servant of the living God. Now see, that's my point. Daniel lived his life in such a way that there was no doubt in the king's mind who his God was. There was no doubt in his mind at all who the king, what God that Daniel served, the living God. Daniel, servant of the living God. Was your God whom you serve so faithfully able to rescue you from the lions? That's the way I want to live my life. See, it wasn't the great sermons that Daniel got up every morning, stood up on the mountaintop. He wasn't such an orator that the words impacted the king. It was the way he lived his life. Now, verse 21, Daniel answered, long live the king. That's the first words out of his mouth. He didn't wish the king to die so that he could go back home. My God sent his angel to shut the lion's mouth so that they would not hurt me, for I've been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, your majesty. What if we all treated our president with such respect instead of contempt? The king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, for he had trusted in his God. Then we can get into a whole different message here about the level of trust that Daniel had. See, it was the level of trust that Daniel had that allowed him to live his life in the manner in which he lived it. See, the reason why we get up and we mumble and complain is because we don't trust God. See, we think we have to be on one side or the other side. We have to either be this political party or this political party, because we can't trust that regardless of who gets elected, God's still God. It all comes back to, have I ever told you guys that every problem I've ever had in my entire life, because I couldn't allow God to love me, it can be traced back to my inability to accept the love that God had for me. That's just another way of saying I just didn't trust him. I thought he had hurt me like other people had hurt me. I thought he'd reject me like other people had rejected me. I thought that because I'd been a bad little girl, that I could get the whipping of my life again. See, I had one of those whippings when I was 13 years old, 14 years old. Not by my daddy, but I had one of those whippings that impacted my ability to trust God. I just thought he was going to hurt me. What's the reason why you don't trust God? What is it from your past that blocks your ability to just let loose and trust God? I mean, nothing that I've seen in my life has been as bad as what was done to Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and yet they were able to trust. They were able to trust. So can we. So can we. 2 Peter. Have I told you guys how much I love the Peters? I'm just saying. I was, one of the things I told the girls when we got on the Zoom last night is that it was meant to be yesterday morning for me to wake up and have the time to get caught up on some of my reading, because in the very first reading, I spent probably 2 hours just in the first, 13 verses. That was Ezekiel chapter 47, as a matter of fact. I don't mind telling y'all. I spent hours there. But the reading, the fact that I didn't wake up in the morning in a rush, got to be in here and punch the button by 8:30 so that I'll be on time, just allowed me to soak it in. I just soaked it in, and such goodness in the Peter readings that we have. What Peter wrote down for us. Today's not any exception. I want you to remember chapter 3, 2 Peter 3, verse 2. I want you to remember what the holy prophet said long ago. Oh, we're reading in the book of Daniel. Imagine that. So in case I didn't press in deep enough when I'm reading Daniel, I get into the New Testament and it tells me to pay attention to what the prophet said and what our Lord and Savior commanded through your apostles. Most importantly, I want to remind you that in the last days, scoffers will come, mocking the truth and following their own desires. See, he tells us things in advance. I am convinced that he's working to get me to a place that I'm not surprised by anything anymore. That I'll stop ever saying, I hope I never say again, well, just when I thought I wouldn't be surprised by anything, I'm surprised by it. Can you believe that kid did that? Can you believe that person said that? Well, can you believe that politician did that? Can you believe? Why are we surprised? It's written down. He tells us in advance what we need to know. And especially if we're listening with spiritual ears. He tells us things. He prepares us in advance. He never leaves us. He never abandons us. Do you know that sometimes just means, just like a little kid, none of my kids were scared to go to the dentist. Not one of them, ever. Because when I got ready to take them, I would tell them exactly what to expect. If it was just a checkup and a cleaning, they knew exactly what to expect from the moment they were in the chair till they got out. If they had to have a filling, they knew exactly what to expect. When they got the shot for the numbing, they weren't afraid of the needle. I told them, I showed them what a needle was. I told them it's going to stick for just a minute. And you don't have to be afraid of it because it's not going to hurt very long. And they're going to numb it, they're going to deaden it, and you're not going to feel anything but the vibration of the drill. And because I told them in advance, I always followed it up with, and Mommy will be right there with you. You know, I was a great big old kid. Do you know, to this day, when I get sick, I want my mom. Tom and I got married and I got the flu that first year so bad. Oh my gosh, I was sick that year. My mom drove in and stayed with me 3 days till I got better. I guess I am a little spoiled, aren't I? My point is, you know my point. God never leaves us. He never abandons us. We never go through anything. They come in here with guns a-blaring and they start dragging us out of our homes. The level of grace God will give us to endure that is nothing you've had to experience up until this point. We don't have to fear it. God will be with us. There is nothing for us to fear. If God be for us, who can be against us? See, we listen to these scriptures and we quote these scriptures till they just become a cliche. It's just a cliche. Oh, if God be for us, who can be against us? You know, I can make that cross-country trip in my air-conditioned car on my comfy seats with a seatbelt that protects me. I mean, we can make a trip cross-country such an ordeal that people have anxiety attacks over. And I'm not downplaying that. If that happens to be where your mindset is, I'm contrasting something fairly easy with what Daniel, Meshach, and Abednego was facing to what God is saying right here. Most importantly, I want to remind you that in the last days, scoffers will come mocking the truth and following their own desires. They will say, what happened to the promise that Jesus is coming again? I'm saying that the reason why Daniel's written down into this book so that we can read it is because the life he led was a life where he trusted God. Every problem we have will be wiped out when we trust God enough. We won't have any more problems when we reach that place. But as long as we got this physical body, we'll struggle with that. That's why he wrote it down for us. I don't have to fear the end times. I don't have to fear a second coming, a tribulation. I don't have to fear the things that are written down about the end of the world because he lives on the inside of me. Should that day come and the rapture happens, what do I have to fear? But see, he's already in my heart already. I see that as my second coming. I'm not saying, and I'm not getting into doctrine and theology, that there won't be another physical coming. I'm just telling you guys, it'll just be another day in the book. Because God is God. God is as much God today as the day that happens, that we look up and he's in the clouds. He's still God. What do we have to fear? Brian Daniel, look who's in here. Okay, I guess that's my cue. I better wrap it up. So, getting to see his grandpa.
How you doing, Grandpa?
You guys just get to join in with our family stuff. Okay, we'll finish up. Verse 8.
Oh, well, I was coming anyways. Good morning.
There's Brian. That's my youngest. That's my baby. But you must not forget this one thing, dear friends. A day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years is like a day. See, if you happen to be at one of those places that the holidays was hard, you were lonely. It didn't go the way you thought it was going to go. That this season in your life is one of those tough seasons where you're suffering. Those words right there should comfort you. That you're going to blink and the next thing you know, it's going to be a year later. And this time and this season will be gone. The Lord isn't really being slow about his promise, as some people think. He wrote that down for us. No, he is being patient for your sake. He does not want anyone be destroyed. You know that right there? I've got that highlighted. I've got that marked in my Bible. He doesn't want not one destroyed. Who is it that you're praying for that doesn't seem to be living their life according to what this book says? He doesn't want not one destroyed. See, this is new covenant. This isn't old covenant that we live in today. When the evil had to be destroyed. It had to be destroyed because there was no regenerating spirit of the Holy Spirit at work that could transform them back onto the right path. Evil had to be destroyed to keep evil from overcoming everything. There always has to be an evil to go with the good, or else we'll not recognize what good is. There's a purpose for everything. And God doesn't want not one destroyed. He's made a way for all. Jesus died for all. Okay, I guess I just got to stop. I just need to stop. I could keep going. And I hope you saw the way that our reading in 2 Peter today tied into what we were talking about in Daniel this morning. I love how that happens, that back in the 1980s, they separated these scriptures into this one-year reading plan, and yet they're tied together. Dad wants me to read. So this is verse, so we're in 2 Peter chapter 3. Chapter 3. Yeah, chapter 3, verse 9. The Lord isn't really being slow about his promise, as some people think. No, he is being patient for your sake. He does not want anyone be destroyed, but wants everyone to repent. But the day of the Lord will come as unexpectedly as a thief. Then the heavens will pass away with a terrible noise, and the very elements themselves will disappear in fire, and the earth and everything on it will be found to deserve the judgment. That happened the day that I recognized Jesus Christ come into my heart. When I welcomed him in, then in this sinful body, with the sinful mind that I had, in that moment, then the heavens will pass away in a terrible noise, and the very elements themselves will disappear. I so much fell off of me when I decided to get my heart back right. So much fell off of me. Thank you for pointing that out, Daddy. So there's my birthday today. There's one. There's two. Those are my birthday presents today. I'm one blessed woman. Number 3. You think I'm not one blessed woman? So I'm not going to leave Facebook out. There's my birthday present. There's my birthday presents. And look at the beauty at my table. Smile, Montana. Daniel, Meshach, and Abednego smiled. And God said, God will take care of it. That's been one of Mary's favorite sayings through the years. Every time something would go wrong, she'll say, God will take care of it. God will take care of it. He said it. If I had a nickel for every time, I'd be rich. You just got to trust him. Just got to trust him. So thank you guys for the birthday wishes. I hadn't planned on making it such a big deal, but it's a big deal, y'all. It is. My daddy and my mom and my son and my bestest friends in the whole world are here, and I'm so blessed. Love you guys so very, very, very much. You guys have a magnificent Monday.